Hi, my name is Ransom For. Today I want to introduce you to an atom, what building an atom is all about. What is an atom? What is an atom made up of? What are the constituent particles in an atom? So I will first of all start by defining what an atom is. An atom is the smallest particle of matter. So matter is anything that has mass and occupies space, like the chairs, the tables, anything, the freezer, anything you're able to touch essentially is matter. So the smallest particle of matter is what we call an atom. An atom, using the Bohr model named from the scientist Niels Bohr, represents an atom with a nucleus at the center, and surrounding the nucleus you do have shells. Shells are orbitals, are circular path on which the electrons orbit. So with this model, I want you to picture a ball at the center of a football field, for example, or a ball at the center of a soccer field or a soccer pitch. So the ball will be the nucleus, and the where the supporters or where the audience is sitting will be the orbit. So in a nucleus, you have the protons right here, and you have the neutrons. So these are the two particles that are found in the nucleus of any atom. Now, surrounding the orbit, you have the electrons. So those are the three particles in an atom: the protons, the neutrons, the electrons. The proton and the neutrons are found in the nucleus right here. So at the center, the nucleus is actually at the center of the atom, while the electrons are found on the shells. So given those three particles, what are actually their function? I will first of all start by defining their functions or their significance. The proton actually is just like the identification number of each atom. Every element has its own identical atom. So every element will have different number of protons because a proton is just like the identification number. So the elements in the periodic table, just like the one you've seen here, the periodic table is an arrangement of elements in horizontal column and vertical, in horizontal periods and vertical groups. So the horizontal arrangement of element is called a period, while the vertical arrangement is called the groups. So these elements are arranged from identification number 1, which in chemical term we call it the atomic number, and up to the element with the highest atomic number. So it starts from 1 to, for now, there are 118 elements. So you have atomic number 1 to atomic number 118. So what does that mean? It means if I'm trying to build the first atom or atom with atomic number 1, it means that that atom will have 1 proton. So if I want to build atomic number 2, it means that element will have 2 protons in the nucleus. And that is how it adds up. So if I want to build an element with atomic number 5, it means that that element is going to have 5 protons. So essentially, the number of protons is the atomic number of the element. It actually tells you the position of the element in the periodic table. So if I'm looking for an element with atomic number 5, it will be in the 5th position in the periodic table. Now, what is a peculiarity about the protons? The protons have a positive charge. So if I put 2 protons in the nucleus of this atom, what happens to it is that it becomes positively charged. One proton has a +1 charge, which means 2 protons will have a +2 charge. So this atom is now charged because it has 2 protons in the nucleus, and there is actually nothing to balance the positive charge. So ideally, we want an atom to be neutral, which means no charge. So if I want to build an atom, I have to make sure that the net charge or the overall charge of this atom is 0. But as of now, with these 2 protons in the nucleus, the overall charge is +2 because I have 2 protons and 1 proton is +1 charge. Now, I have the electrons. The charge of 1 electron is negative. So for me to balance up these 2 protons such that the charge will be 0, I add the first electron on the orbit. That will balance the charge by 1. So for me to balance 2 protons, I need 2 electrons because that is the opposite of the electron. So the proton has a charge of +1 and the electron has a charge of -1. So you could see when I take these electrons off, you see this atom has a charge right here. But when I add the second electron, it balances the charge and it tells you neutral atom. This is simply because the electrons have the tendency or are meant to balance the charge of the proton. Now, that is how essentially the atom is built. So the objective of this video is for you to understand that the proton is the identification number of the element. So as many protons does the element have, that will indicate the position of the atom in the periodic table. So if I do have 2 protons, it means that's atomic number 2. So atomic number is the position of the atom on the periodic table. And you should not forget that the electrons have to balance the charge of the proton. And also there is what we call the mass number. If you look at it right here, the mass number. The mass number is the sum of the proton plus the neutron. The mass of the proton is 1 atomic mass unit, and that of the neutron is 1. So if I want to know the mass of an atom, I simply add the number of proton plus the number of neutron. That gives me the mass number. So experimentally or in nature, this element that I'm building has a mass of 4 atomic mass units. But based on the model that I just built, I have 2 protons, which means that this atom that I built has a mass of 2, which in reality is not true. So for me to make this mass to be 4, I need to add 2 neutrons to the nucleus. That is why without the neutrons, you could see the protons shaking. That is to tell you that the nucleus is unstable with these 2 protons and electrons. But as soon as I add the 2 neutrons, it makes the nucleus stable. So that's it for this video. I hope you should be able to recall that there are 3 particles in an atom: protons, neutrons, and electrons, and that the proton is the identification number of the atom. See you in the next video.